G'day, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. We're going to do a patron-powered Q&A today. I'm checking in from my hotel here in New Zealand. It is Monday, the 11th of March. The show that I'm playing with, Bernie Dieter's Club Cabaret, is opening tomorrow. So I've had a bit of a fun week here. Been doing a lot of eating and drinking coffee and kind of trying to get mentally prepared for the show. But I did have a bunch of you submit questions when I put the word out a few times for the patron Q&As. I'm going to try to get through all of these. As always, a massive, massive thank you for your support on the channel over the years and going forward. Like I always say, you help keep the lights on the channel, you keep my cats fed, you keep putting strings on my guitar and helping me keep the channel going and reinvesting in it so that I can keep talking about all the things we use to make glorious guitar noises. Let's just get straight into it. If you do want more information, it will be in the video description of how to join the community over on Patreon. Alternatively, you can get some of my free blocks, presets, and access to the Discord server. Again, just check the video description in there. And we are going to get started. So we're going to start with a very good question. This one comes from Felipe Romano. I'm going to read it to you, and I will hopefully be able to rub two brain cells together and give you some thoughts on this. So this one from Felipe says, a very personal issue I'm dealing with right now. How do you stop thinking about guitar and tone when you need to do something else? Right now, it's hard for me to focus on my day job. Felipe's working from home, or sometimes I don't want to leave home to see people. I just want to play. How do you find that balance when you love guitar stuff so much? And I'm right there with you, mate. When you get into this wonderful thing called music and you have an instrument to, I guess, engage with it, particularly a guitar, there's this entire ecosystem of things that kind of help make cool guitar noises. And a lot of the time we can get a little bit lost in the minutia of all of that stuff. Like, is a tube screamer better than SD1? Is a Strat better than a Les Paul? You can keep going and going. Our 9.5 gauge strings going to make the difference between 10 gauge strings and things like that. What should I practice? Am I practicing stuff that's going to help me progress? Maybe you've learned a new piece of music and you just want to keep playing it. I think at its root, that is not a bad thing at all, Felipe. Wanting to play guitar, wanting to play music, wanting to be interested in the gear, having an immense amount of passion for what you're doing is a beautiful thing. That's one of the great things about life in general, when you find that thing that you really, really want to do. And I totally understand where you're coming from, because that's been the majority of my life at this point. And I'm really fortunate to have been able to do a lot of it. And I'm here on this show at the moment, getting to do some of that. It is really important to remember, and I have said this before on other videos, that, music and guitar is part of life and not the other way around. Being social, catching up with your mates, taking care of your physical and mental well-being, finding other things in your life that you may not be as passionate about as the guitar, that you can still engage with. I always kind of think the thing that I actually get a lot out of with music and guitar, when I'm really enjoying it, is that sort of access to a flow state where you're just doing something and you get lost in it. And I found a few other things personally that really help with that. Like cooking is one thing that I love doing. Exercising is another thing when you can tap into that flow state. I think that's what we're all kind of here chasing. So my advice would be, a good thing to do might actually to say, hey, if you're working from home, try to separate out what you need to do, say in your home office, and the guitar, and set aside some time at the same time every day where you switch off from work and you know you're going to sit down and play some guitar, and put those boundaries in place. I think they're really, really important with a lot of things. If you want to find a good work-life balance or a good work and kind of say guitar, social life, being a human being balance, having those boundaries is really important. But I'm not a doctor. Don't take any of this to heart. It might be a thing that if you really are concerned about it, it's worth going and speaking to a professional about, and they can probably give you some good guidelines in there. And I'm sure a lot of the people watching this have had similar experiences. Feel free to share them as well. But I totally feel you there, Felipe, and I'm quite confident you'll be able to find that balance in there. Guitar is so awesome, but you want to keep it awesome. And if the rest of your life isn't awesome, then you probably won't have the bandwidth for the guitar and the music to do that. We're going to move on now to a question from Daniel Ward. Reverse headstocks on guitars, thoughts? I've read that because the string lengths are reversed. This gives you more tension to the thicker gauge strings and less tension. I don't know so much about that because if you want to tune a low string to a particular pitch, the string does have to be under tension, and the effective length from the nut to the bridge is going to be pretty important. You are going to have more dead string length in there. I might be totally wrong about this. Maybe it does. Maybe having the string stretched out over a longer length, but with the nut in a particular place is slightly more optimal. What I think you do get with reverse headstocks is that because there's more dead string length, maybe that can resonate a bit more. So you may run into some issues with sort of the dead string length vibrating a little bit and causing some noise in there. But the most important thing is reverse headstocks look cool. Seeing a reverse headstock on a Kramer or on a Washburn N4 or something like that, I think is pretty rad. And podcast co-host and friend of the channel, Troy Naberman, would certainly agree. Troy's got a great kind of Nuno-inspired Warmoth build with a reverse headstock that I really like. So let me know your thoughts on reverse headstocks in the comment section below. This one comes from AntMods. Coming up on my 5th anniversary of owning my Axe FX3, I am currently going through all the presets, collecting them, cleaning them out. Do you accumulate experimental presets or do you keep it organized? For keeping it organized, I, at the start of every year, basically back up my Axe and then I delete everything on it except for the presets that I kind of use day to day. So I have like a teaching preset on there with 2 inputs when I'm doing lessons in person. I've got my main ragdoll presets that are pretty much the same across all the different fractal devices. And I do have a few kind of standard, like, just a clean and a JCM 800 crunch. I probably have, 10 to 15 presets that are my everyday drivers. They stay in that first set of 50 presets. Then right at the back, I'll put all the really fun stuff on there. So I've got a bunch of presets by people like Matt Picone and Simeon Harris and some of the factory presets that I really find inspiring. I also put all the effect recreation. So things that you might see with my free blocks library in there, if it's like an SPX90 preset or it's a Deluxe Memory Man preset or a Strum and Volante, I'll keep those in there. But yeah, I do then just go through and cull everything else. I'll save the blocks. I will back up the presets and keep them on my computer, but kind of like seeing lots of empty spaces on there. And already at this point in this year, I feel like I've kind of got to go through maybe in the next month or something and kind of clean those out in there. It's not a bad way to do it. Some people are maximalists. They like having all the presets on there all the time. I like to have, maybe less than 50 presets. Again, like anything more than 5 is probably complete overkill. But again, keen to know what people are doing there. This one comes from Marcelo Duha, who is a long-standing patron. I've had many a good chat with Marcelo over the years, and I hope you're doing well, Marcelo. Marcelo wanted to know my thoughts on the new Jason Becker and Friends song. There was a little bit of chat about this on my Discord server. For anyone not familiar with Jason's music and Jason's just story as a human being, stop this video right now, put Jason Becker guitar into YouTube and go and check some of it out. Jason was a phenomenally gifted player and all-around musician, and tragically was diagnosed with ALS. And from my understanding, ALS is a disease that people don't really survive very long. And Jason is still with us at the moment, and even though essentially he's unable to move any of his body except for his eyes, he's still composing music. I used to love seeing Jason's websites, the updates he would put out, and his sense of humor and dealing with something that is incredibly terrible. It's sort of like a testament to the human spirit. So Jason is just super inspiring as a person. And if you're a fan of high octane lead guitar as well, like one of the greatest shredders of all time as well. So anytime I see anything related to Jason, it just kind of makes me smile and makes me think of Jason the person and how inspiring his story has been, against the odds. So I would encourage everybody to go and check out that track. There's like so many great guitar players on it. It's more a kind of jam track than I think a song with a defined melody or anything like that. But again, that's totally fine. It's a bunch of people getting together, making glorious guitar noises, and there are so many worse ways you could be spending your time on Earth. So, yeah, that one kind of made me smile. That one is called Some Assembly Required, by the way. And we've got a question from Phil Dolan right here. Phil wants to know, using the fractal stuff, or I guess any modeler in general, to track guitars, do I record without any delay modulation? And do I add in later? Or do I just use the preset? Normally for tracking guitars, we've done it all pretty dry. So I try to recreate like a real world amp workflow on there. Whereas if I was recording with a real amp in a cabinet, like I've done many a time, you mic up the cab, you plug the amp and the guitar in, you do your double, your quad tracks, and then if you want some grease on it, you add the grease later. And I'm mostly just using FabFilter and Soundtoys plugins for that kind of stuff. FabFilter Timeless is amazing. Their R2 reverb is great. All their sort of equalization and compressions are great as well. And the Soundtoys stuff is excellent as well. I have used delay and modulation for overdubs. So like you've got a specific sound on the axe, it's just a cool ambient sound or a cool lead sound. A lot of the time I'll just tempo sync that to the track and lay it down that way. And I think that's a nice kind of compromise between the instant gratification of having your sound while you're playing and then having the flexibility later to change it up. Again, I always kind of refer to it as, if you leave it dry, then you can always add the wet stuff later. If you get a great take, but maybe it's a little bit too wet, which isn't that rare for me, but sometimes you want to be safe, that you want to have that option in there. Okay, I've had to reposition. I was getting really uncomfortable sitting on this bed, staring into my laptop camera. Rutger also wanted to know P bass or jazz bass. I own a jazz bass. I think when I look at a band and the bass player is playing a jazz bass, that's my archetype of what a bass player should look like. So I think if I had to go and do a gig, I would grab the jazz. But Ryan has an amazing sounding Music Man Stingray that I really, really like playing. So yeah, maybe I'd actually choose the third option, which would be an EBMM Stingray. Next question on here. This one is from Joshua Craft. When I'm running the FM9 or FM3, what do I generally set the output level to? All the way up, or do I turn the knob down? For the show I'm doing at the moment, the output level knob is at 11 o'clock, and I will qualify this with a few things. I've got all my presets leveled using the preset leveling tool on the Fractal, so that roughly I'm hitting 0 dB in there. And then, yeah, 11 o'clock on there, that worked best for the way this particular gig is gain staged. So I've got the ability to turn it up or down if I want on there. Next one comes from Mark Stevens. Leon, would you consider a few more HX Stomp presets? Yours are my go-to when I play in the band. That's so awesome to know. And yes, I think when I get back home, I do want to make a few more little preset packs for the patrons on here. I'll do some more HX and QC ones, and I will try and do some more neural amp modeler and tone X captures as well. We've got some kind of ideas of things that I've got at home that I just haven't got around to kind of putting together or capturing. And yeah, the Helix platform has some amazing sounds in there. Some of the kind of synth and octave stuff I haven't really explored that much, even though I love that unit. So if you got specific requests, let me know, and I would be happy to put something together. This is a great one. This one's from Roy Thomas Bow, and Roy, massive friend of the channel. Roy sold me his DGT, which is probably my favorite guitar in the world at the moment, and I'm definitely missing it. I don't have it with me. So Roy, I always think of you when I pick up that guitar. But how do I make my cat stop scratching at the furniture? It's impossible. But what I would suggest is, we've got cat trees and we've got all sorts of things for the cats to use. Their favorite thing to scratch is this kind of corrugated cardboard. It looks like a mini banana bed. It was $5 at Kmart here in Australia, and it's the best $5 we have ever spent on the cats. They love it. They ignore all the other scratching things. They just want to scratch their claws on the $5 banana bed. So yeah, maybe check out Kmart Australia and see if they ship to your part of the world. That would be that would be my advice there. And we got one last one on here from CJ McDonald. live monitoring follow-up from the Gear podcast with Troy the other day. You were going FM9 direct to PA and an FRFR monitor on stage. Would you mix the rest of the band into the FRFR? And your guitar, where would you set the monitor up? Would you have it facing you like a traditional monitor, or would you have it set up as a kind of backline amp? I'll answer the first question for that one, CJ, or the first question, because there's only two on there. I would just run guitar through it. I found that works pretty well because I've got a monitor for everything else on there. Traditional, just it's coming out at me. I'll put a picture up of the setup that I'm using at the moment. I think it's just a JBL wedge, but I'm getting plenty of spill from the big PA in there, which is nice. I would set it up with just the guitar in there. And I personally have found that placing it where I would place a guitar amp tends to work best on there. Again, this is something that, depending on the setup, you might run into some phase issues on there. So if you did like that, and you like guitar coming from behind you when you're on stage, that works well. You can set it up as a traditional monitor on there, but I think it kind of makes the point of having another monitor kind of move, like you could just put guitar into your wedge with vocals and drums and everything else on there. So I normally just like hearing the lead vocal, a little bit of my own vocal, which I don't sing that much, but I do talk, especially during ragdoll shows, sometimes getting carried away and telling all the bad jokes all the time, and bass guitar, and then a little bit of kick in there. I always love feeling the kick through the monitor on there. So that blended in with my guitar normally gives me like a good picture of the whole band rather than just guitar. But I have also found that running an FRFR, just where I would put a guitar amp, give me a little bit more of that kind of cabby thing in there. But then again, a lot of people will probably just prefer a real guitar cab on stage and everything else out of the monitors, and that's kind of fine. It's like, how do you like your socks? Do you like the ankle socks? Do you like the quarter crews? Do you like the really long socks that come up to your knees? There's like no wrong way to do it. Some people like to get around with no socks, and you may not want to be around those people very long because they're a little bit stinky. That's also fine as well. It's just like how you like running your monitors. Anyway, that is it for this week's Q&A. Thank you to all my amazing patrons. If you've got a request for questions or anything you'd like to ask me for next week's Q&A video on the channel, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you to everybody for their continued support here on the channel. And I don't know, hopefully you can kind of see this. To everybody, no, that's terrible. There you can see a bit of the city. To everybody in Auckland who has been facilitating us having a great time so far, thank you very much. And I will check in with you all very, very soon. Take it easy.